Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where Karens are running wild, thinking the world revolves around them. And in today's episode, guys, a super entitled Karen gets fired after not getting what she wants and destroying company property. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's lineup of stories. Don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your Reddit post to this email right here. Okay, so this didn't happen today. It happened about 23 years ago, but it was my first traumatic cringe. I was 12 years old. Picture what it would look like if Wednesday Addams really was genuinely dying to get into Babysitter's Club, and that's me. On this day, I was having my second period ever, complete with Satan's tsunami of pain happening to my insides. My family decided that this is when we're gonna go visit Mammoth Cave National Park, and I'm still in that stage when I'm embarrassed by my period. So we're taking the cave tour, and we're in one of those really tight places with a horrible name like Fat Man's Death, and all hell is brewing in my gut. Audible growling like hellhounds begging to be freed. Loud enough for people next to me to get that shifty-eyed, what the F look. At the time, I'm 4'11", maybe 100 pounds, and all that stands between the world and the nuclear bomb in my guts is the clench. And I clenched, you guys. I clenched through so much of the longest cave system in the world, I just couldn't do it anymore. At that point, I figured I would just let a little bit out. Just a little, and I'll feel so much better. I thought. So I did, and I didn't. I cracked the door, but all the demons escaped. What came out was the most inexplicably silent fart, accompanied by the worst rancid smell that I've ever smelled. The kind that immediately makes you think that it couldn't possibly have come from your own body or any living body. And this is where my mother comes into play. Now, there's one thing you must know about my mother. Her name is Karen, and legend has it that she's the original. She's entitled, she's stuck up, she has to be right all the time. If I had a dime for every manager spoken to while my family sat red-faced, pleadingly apologizing with our eyes, I'd be Scrooge McDuck rich. So here we are, stewing in rancid hellfire corpse-level stank, and my mother out of nowhere asked the poor teenager tour guide who's trying not to gag, "Are there sulfur deposits down here? I smell sulfur." Hearing her say that, there was silence, and the boy says, "No ma'am, there's no sulfur in this part of the cave system." Now, another thing about my mother's self-entitled attitude is my mother is never wrong. Not even when she's wrong. She insists, "Oh, that can't be right. I smell sulfur. I know that smell from a mile away. Are you saying that I'm wrong?" The teenage boy goes on and says, "No ma'am, there's no sulfur." Now, if there was a manager nearby, we'd already be speaking to them. I could tell that my mother is getting very upset. She's huffing at this point, and she's giving out noises like psh, because she's obviously right that it does smell like sulfur, and this ridiculous teenager doesn't know what the heck he's talking about. So back and forth it goes on, for like 15 minutes. Her insistence that she's right keeps ratcheting up, and at this point, she's questioning him if he even knows how to do his job properly, and she's accusing him of giving out bad information on the tour. That poor bastard. So 20 minutes pass, and to his credit, he then glances at me and he does the kindest thing that kept me from completely shriveling up and dying on the spot. He plastered a queasy grin on his face, and he says to my mother, "You know what, ma'am? Maybe I am wrong. Maybe there is sulfur down here. I'm gonna double check on that as soon as we get back. Maybe I will learn something new today." It's at that point, my mother then gave him a firm, "Maybe you will. And maybe you'll realize that adults like myself know more than teenagers like you." The cringe was so full on that I don't remember anything else about that day. It's a blank. On that fateful day, I learned to never trust a fart, and that the kindness of strangers is a very real thing. Oh my goodness, that poor teenager, guys, going up against the Karen and having to back down when he knew he was right all along to save OP from a world of embarrassment. And guys, if I were in that cave, I would have gotten sick of hearing Karen berating that poor employee, and I would have saved him by saying, "Ma'am, it's not the cave. I farted, so shut up and leave that poor employee alone." Sometimes you just gotta put that cape on, guys. So I love listening to your Karen stories, and I have a story to share. This happened years ago. I had left work early because I felt like death and I didn't want to work with a cold. I didn't know what to do with all this free time I've just been granted, so I figured, hey, let's make a rocket. I've seen videos on how to make a rocket engine out of PVC pipe and household ingredients, so I thought, why not? I'd give it a go. So I pick up all the stuff I need and make my way to the park, which is wide open and a well-ventilated area. My first mistake was I was supposed to use 3/4 PVC. I used 1.5 inches. My second mistake was Karen was sitting in the corner of the park, hidden from view. You'll see how she plays into this. So my buddy and I spend about an hour or so constructing this failed contraption of a rocket, adding much more fuel than necessary and packing it way too tight. Then comes the time where this bad boy is ready to fly, and we start talking precautions. We alerted everybody in the area and even gathered a small crowd to watch the rocket. However, we completely missed Karen as she was hiding in her car on the far end. So we light the damn thing, and instead of launching, it smokes. Like a lot of smoke. Like so much freaking smoke that it looked like there was a forest fire in the area. Now, I can't put into words how much smoke this foot-long rocket was producing, but we soon realized that it was a dud, and we leave it be so it'll run out of fuel. And just our luck, a group of track kids comes out of the woods, and they just stop and stare, clearly concerned. We then realized our mistake, and we attempted to put it out, except it wouldn't effing stop. Eventually, a kid from the crowd grabs it, and he throws it into a nearby field, and it eventually died down. We then attempted to clean up the mess, but nothing was cooperating. The rocket had eaten a hole into the pavement, and there was molten plastic everywhere. We picked up what we could, and we left hoping that would be the end of it, but apparently it was not. So my buddy and I are sitting in McDonald's, talking over the situation, when suddenly we see 4 black police units driving by. We joked about it being a bomb squad, and eventually forgot about it. Fast forward to the next morning, I get a call from my brother claiming someone planted a pipe bomb at our park. They had pictures of our cars and a statewide search was in place. My brother then linked me a Facebook post. Apparently, little Miss Karen had to get her panties in a bunch and she made a post on Facebook about the ordeal, claiming that 2 men were seen planting an explosive device at the local park. At that moment, I hauled ass down to the police station to clear things up. They called up the bomb squad to check to see if it looked more like a bomb or a rocket, and we took the time to go over my abominations. They were very understanding, and eventually everything cooled down. All that came from it was a ticket for disturbing the peace and a warning to not make damned rockets in public parks. So yeah, that was my one and only Karen encounter. Okay, so this is one of the entitled Karen posts that was shared with me, where I don't think Karen is the bad person. Like, she was a legit concerned person at the park that day. And I believe OP was lucky that all he got was a ticket for disturbing the peace. Like, guys, I love hating on Karens as much as the next person, but just because someone calls the police or complains doesn't always make them an entitled Karen. So yesterday, I turned 18 years old. And for the past 6 years, like clockwork, every day on my birthday, we would go to the same place for dinner, and I would always get the same thing. So every year on my birthday, we would go to Applebee's. The very first thing I would get is the steak and shrimp parmesan with a side of loaded mashed potatoes and a cheesy steamed broccoli. Sometimes I'd also get mozzarella sticks. In total, it's around $30. Now, I couldn't really tell something was off until a bit later, because when me, my mother, my stepfather, and my older brother sat down, they didn't really say anything. I was confused at first, and started tapping my fingers on one another like I always do, and the conversation then goes a bit like this. My mother then speaks up and says, "Well?" I was rather confused, and I said, "Well..." And then she says, "Aren't you gonna call the waiter over?" And this gave me extreme anxiety. I have extreme issues with speaking with people. I then asked her if she could do it, and she does it in a huff. My dad and brother staring nonchalantly. So as she calls the waiter over, the alarm bells are ringing in my head, as this has never happened before. The waiter gets to the table and he asks everybody what they want. Everyone orders, and as he gets to me, my mother stops him and tells him, "Separate bill." And this is when my heart began beating very fast. Now, I didn't have a job, I don't have any money, and all the money I get is from our neighbors raking leaves, and I just kind of freeze. Now, this is where I'm conflicted on whether I'm the entitled a-hole or not. My mother would then explain at the table that now that I'm 18 years old, I should be able to pay for my own things. I was already feeling nauseous from the situation, so I just said I don't have money. At that, my mom kind of huffs and she shoos the waiter away. And this soured the dinner party. However, my mom also paid for my 23-year-old brother. My family were calling me an entitled a-hole the whole ride home. And when I got home, I just ran to my room and cried. They've been ignoring me the whole day. My family has never acted like this before, and I mean never. I feel very angry and upset at my family. My family gets a little tight on money, and I guess I should have asked before assuming they were gonna pay for me. But I missed out on my birthday dinner because I wasn't mature enough to bring my own money, so am I the a-hole? Guys, reading this post, it's one that's shared with me that I'm hoping is a freaking troll post because those have gotta be the worst parents ever, right? And no, in my opinion, I don't think OP is the entitled a-hole for expecting a birthday dinner to be paid for. I feel like birthdays are the days where you're allowed to be a little bit entitled. Just a little bit. But that's also coming from someone who's grown up celebrating birthdays and having parents who loved celebrating family birthdays. And listen guys, I get that turning 18 is a sign of adulthood, independence, etc. And some families do have this little thing where they're like, oh, you're 18, get out of my house, pay for rent, etc, etc. But damn, did they really expect OP to pay for his own food when they knew he had no money? And even worse, put him on the spot like that and then had the nerve to eat in front of him while he starved on his own birthday, this poor guy. But guys, let me know your thoughts. Like, I can't be the only one who thinks this is absurd. And seriously, I don't know if this is some sort of tough love or what, but it sounds ridiculous. So this happened years ago when I worked as an executive support technician for a large company. At the time, I had a team of 8 people under me, and we support high-ranking executives and their administrative assistants. Because of the nature of our work, we have the abilities to get things done that the standard help desk can't. We can force upgrades that would otherwise be denied, get things expedited, skip the normal procedures, and talk directly with the people who fix the issues. And while we are executive support, there are still levels. When the CEO's in town, one of us is camped outside of where he might be, just in case there's some sort of an issue. For lower people, we make sure things get done as quickly as possible, but it's not a drop everything situation. I remember prepping for the releases of the new iPhones, and we brace for the flood of I need this that inevitably happens. We slot in orders immediately for the top of the pyramid guys, and then we work our way down, replacing or sometimes having to tell them that they have to wait because the device is too new to warrant replacing. So on Monday, the executive assistant, who we'll call Karen, of a lower-end executive, put in a request to get both herself and the executive a new 256GB iPhone X. The executive was put on the approval list with a wait, but the executive assistant was denied. She had just been issued an iPhone 7 a few months ago, and she began to raise hell saying, I have to support him, so I have to have the exact same phone. She was still denied. So on Tuesday, we get a ticket from the executive assistant that the iPhone won't turn on, and she'll require a replacement with an attached ticket for an iPhone X request. So I send one of my drones out to investigate, and I immediately get a text saying that I have to get out there. So I get out there, and the iPhone's wet. And it's not just wet, but it's dripping wet, like just pulled out of a glass of water wet, with a screen that could only be called heavily cracked. The Karen states, I was using it and it fell into my water bottle. So we take the phone back to our area, and I've called my manager over and we explain it. It's obvious what happened. We've toweled it off, and when we turn it over, water drizzles out of the cracked screen. Well, as luck would have it, we have spares, so I pluck a nice 64GB rose gold iPhone 6s that was returned when the previous owner departed from the company. I call and have the SIM reprovisioned, and I reassign the phone and have the phone returned to Karen. 10 minutes later, she's at our door. She's ranting, screaming, throwing a tantrum saying that she can't work like this, and that she needs a new phone. And if we don't give her one, the executive will make us give her one. So I step in and tell her a replacement is in the process, and we've had to issue you the phone as a loaner so you can continue working until a permanent replacement is sourced. Cue Wednesday. The approval process has come back denied for her replacement, and the loaner phone is now her permanent phone. So the information's relayed to her, and she's fuming, screaming, the executive will hear about this. And she's also saying, I can't believe this is happening to me. How will I work? Wednesday afternoon rolls around and she submits another ticket, a new ticket, saying that the iPhone's broken and she needs a replacement. I head out myself to see the issue, and the phone looks like it was dragged behind a semi-truck for 100 miles. The screen is shattered, a big chunk is missing out of the top near the camera, big dents in the back, and I calmly ask, "What happened? This phone was perfect this morning." Karen says to me, "Well, since you gave me an old phone, my case didn't fit, and it slipped out of my hands and it just fell down the stairs." I ask her, "Well, okay, could you tell me when and what stairwell this happened?" So she does, and I grab the mangled phone, and I grab my manager, and we head off to the security office, and we pull the tapes. On the video, we see Karen walking up the stairwell, which is concrete stairs with a metal handrail, and she reaches the top and proceeds to fling the phone like one would skip a stone, down from the 6th floor to the mid-floor landing where it lands, and then she steps on it. She then kicks it down to the 5th floor, it bangs off the metal fire door, and then she picks it up. She examines it, and then she tosses it down the stairs towards the 4th floor, bouncing off a few steps before landing on the mid-landing, between 5 and 4. We see her then picking the device up, and she pries a large section of something off the phone. We suspect that this was the chunk missing by the camera. And then she heads back up the stairs, running the phone against the cinder block wall as she climbs. So we grab a copy of the video, head straight to HR, and we sit with the personal director. We show her the video, we show her the 2 damaged iPhones, and we show her the tickets. I also relay the abuse thrown to myself and my techs about how she demands a new iPhone 10, and has taken to destroying company property to get it. Termination follows. However, the user has gone home for the day, and her accounts are disabled, and her security badge has been flagged. So 7:30 a.m. the next day. She attempts to get inside the building and her badge doesn't work. She has to walk to the security office, and the security officer takes the badge and walks her to HR. At 8 a.m., the security officer and 2 members of HR are escorting Karen out of the building, and she's alternating between yelling, crying, screaming that she's calling cops for discrimination and wrongful dismissal, and demanding the executive be called and that she's being framed. As she's brought through the main foyer, I'm on the 2nd floor balcony that overlooks the entrance. She then looks up at me, curses me, and she's gone. Both phones, her laptop, and other equipment have been placed with the legal team as a precaution. It's company policy when there's a messy separation. Talk about mega entitlement, guys. She vandalized company property just to get the latest and greatest phone at the time, only to be fired. You know what? She deserves it though. At least destroy the phone off company property where there isn't cameras watching you, Karen. Think. Alright, so I'll just start from the very beginning, I guess. Growing up, my brother and I would play pranks on each other. I say each other, but he would only prank me. Relentlessly. Any of you who are younger siblings will know that there will be that one particular moment that often comes up as you get older that starts with, "Hey, remember when," followed by a story that they'll retell to cackle at something devilish they did to you as a child. Our story was about a jar of cookies. So Grandpa was an amazing baker, and he made me a batch of cookies for my 9th birthday, which he sealed in an airtight glass box for me. Now, I don't know how or when, but my brother got a hold of the box and he proceeded to fart in it, and then he sealed it back up. On my birthday, he handed me the cookie box and he said, "Grandpa put some extra stank into this batch." Hearing him say that, I didn't know what he meant at the moment. I was just too excited to try what looked like delicious cookies. So I opened the glass lid and I got blasted in the face by the stench of stale ass, and then immediately throw up in the jar all over the cookies. It's a tale my brother's told repeatedly to his delight since, to everyone we know. So fast forward to now, my brother's wedding day. Now this wasn't a thought out plan, and I hadn't been scheming over it. It was spur of the moment. My brother had retold this story yet again at his bachelor party 3 days prior to embarrass me, and I guess the story was fresh in my mind. So the ceremony's over, all went well, and on to the reception. They were posing for photos before cutting the cake, and I don't know why it came to me, but I leaned over to my brother as his wife was about to take a bite, and I said I put some extra stank into the cake. Now I thought he'd get a laugh, and he didn't. With the reflexes of a mother leaping across to rescue her newborn from something dangerous, my brother just slaps the cake out of her hands. There were some gasps, some laughs, and no one really knew what was going on, me included. He then whispered in her ear, and she looks me in the eyes for a good 5 to 10 seconds, and she starts to cry. She was bawling. She then runs off, and everyone's confused, and my brother confronts me. Now he thought I did do something to the cake as revenge for the cookies. I told him I didn't, and it was just a dumb joke, but he was too mad to listen. She told all of her bridesmaids that I crapped in the cake. And sure enough, soon everyone thinks I crapped in the cake. I was too embarrassed to protest, so I just went home. It's now been a week, and I haven't spoken to them nor anyone else from the wedding, and I keep feeling guilty, even though I actually didn't do anything. So am I the a-hole? So yeah, there's mixed reactions for this one, guys. There are a lot of people saying that OP is the a-hole for a poorly timed joke that ruined the wedding, and others are saying that he's not the a-hole at all, because brothers should learn to be able to take jokes if he can dish them out. My opinion, however, is you should never mess with anyone on their wedding day, like joke or no joke. And OP does come back with an update that says, "So I texted my brother to come to my house after work so we could talk, and he bluntly accepted." We didn't really get to talk though, because as soon as he pulled up in his car, he starts yelling at me on the driveway. It turns out my prank effed things up more than I realized. After I left the wedding reception with my tail between my legs, they got into some kind of argument, and they didn't even go on their honeymoon, for which he blames me. He is still maintaining that I took a dump in the cake, and the reason is something that a lot of people here have realized that my naive 9-year-old self didn't, that he did crap in my cookies. Now I obviously didn't get the specifics mid-argument, but it came out that's what he did. I can only assume he smeared it along the bottom as some type of paste, so people would think it's chocolate oozing out. When I vomited in the box, he got away with it, blaming it on a fart. He thinks I figured it out, and I did that in their cake as revenge. He says he knows I crapped in it, and he's gonna get the cake forensically tested to prove it. He's even threatening legal action on me. Eventually, my wife had to intervene at the shouting match on the doorstep as he was getting increasingly aggressive, and she was worried he might get violent. She got rid of him, and I just went back inside to try to process it all. I got in touch with his wife a few hours later, and her big day was definitely spoiled by my actions, and that wasn't fair. Thankfully, she seems a lot more forgiving than him. We spoke on the phone for a while, and she knows the truth about the cookies, how he crapped in it and not farted, which is why she believed him when he said I crapped in the cake. I didn't want to pry, but it sounded like there had been relationship problems in the lead up to the marriage anyway, and this overreaction was just the tipping point. She moved out, and she's staying with her parents now, and I suppose my brother finds it easier to pin the blame on me for their problems, rather than reflect on his own behavior. I brought up my brother's claim about testing the cake, and she actually laughed, which reassured me that he's the only one thinking about such desperate measures. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I hope you didn't shake your heads too hard. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an entitled people, where OP's Karen aunt steals their inheritance and she destroys her life. Guys, go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.